We wish to pursue the truth no matter where it leads.
We're here at court in downtown Vancouver today, 24th of February 2016, to hear the results of the Allard injunction. See if medical cannabis users are going to be allowed to grow their own in Canada.
Basically, we won. Well, the ball's in the federal government's court. Mr. Trudeau and the Justice Minister have 6 months to respond to the court's ruling and come up with a system of medical cannabis regulation in this country that doesn't impact and negatively take away the charter rights of medical cannabis patients and providers. Find a way to protect people that aren't currently protected by the injunction, but who we now know are having their charter rights violated if they're arrested and prosecuted for having personal gardens. That fear is no longer on the table, and certainly any medical cannabis patient, even not protected by the injunction, now knows that the charter protects what they're doing. It's necessary, I think, for the government to move very, very quickly on medical cannabis. The lessons, I think, are pretty obvious. If you can grow cannabis for yourself for medical purposes, safely, no risk to the public, surely you can grow cannabis for yourself for non-medical purposes, safely, no risk to the public. I've said many, many times and continue to say that legalization is simply not legalization because you will arrest people for growing this plant. I certainly call upon the government to act quickly, to act decisively, and to forever move past the point in time when they are arresting people for growing medical cannabis, or for that matter, non-medical cannabis. It's absolutely barbaric to jail people for this activity, and as a civilized society, we need to move beyond that very, very quickly.
It's Strutter. I'm in downtown Vancouver, and there's a celebration here at the courthouse as the Allard injunction decision just came down, and cannabis is now legal to be grown in Canada. I don't know the exact details. There's a press release and a press conference coming here, and right about noon, but so far people are gathering and celebrating.
A huge victory for the patients in Canada. We got to keep our gardens.
Supreme Court of Canada will say absolutely we must return to the bank, the People's Bank of Canada, for interest-free money to underwrite our nation. Thanks for your attention.
And we tested these 8 samples over at the University of British Columbia. But now, however, this was preliminary tests, and initially we tried them all, and I've been to many cannabis cup, judging many cannabis cup competitions. I've smoked cannabis every day for 32 years. Most of them burned black, most of them burned out if you stop puffing on them. They all tasted horrendous. The 3 from Metrum all had a same chemical taste on them. Came back at 14. There was a White Widow. There was a White Widow. There was a White Widow cannabis. There was a White Widow cannabis labeled 22%.
Less stoned people. Less people stoned, man. Less people stoned. Are you stoned right now?
The White Widow came back at 14%.
What? Alcohol is the worst problem.
What is this guy spelling off about?
Oh, he's wasted or something.
Think of the children.
It's got to be controlled.
Yes.
I don't want high school kids.
It's not about the kids.
Prohibition
Has caused more harm than has caused more harm.
It's about control.
It's
about control.
Yeah, and you're out of control.
We agree with you on control. But a free and fair...
What about that?
Loser! 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 Get lost! He wants you to be on his side.
Just making sure you guys didn't...
Are you for prohibition?
I can't.
No, I know you can't. I can. I'm not for prohibition. We won today.
I'm just making sure you guys weren't going to kill him.
No, we're too mellow for that. Too peaceful. Protesters and people celebrating, as well as quite a bit of media, have assembled here.
John
Conroy. I was counsel along with the people standing behind me for the plaintiffs in this case. And of course, as I'm sure those of you who've had a chance to read the judgment, we're of course very pleased with the decision of the court. The court found that taking away people's ability, medically approved patients' ability to produce for themselves or have a caregiver do so for them, did in fact result in a violation of their constitutional rights under Section 7 of the Charter. The court found that the government's move with the MMPR in doing that was arbitrary and overbroad in going too far. So the MMPR has been struck down as unconstitutional, but following the protocols that exist in constitutional litigation, that declaration of unconstitutionality has been suspended for 6 months. So the MMPR continues for 6 months. The government has 6 months in order to fix it up. And so the government also has 30 days to appeal. The government that instructed the bringing of this, or the opposing of our lawsuit, is a different government than what existed or what exists today. The government that exists today has said publicly and put it in writing that it plans to legalize cannabis. So they've got 30 days to consider an appeal. Hopefully they'll see that pursuing an appeal is not what they should do, and they should immediately get to work trying to make sure that we have in place a reasonable process for patients to continue to produce or have true caregivers stand in their shoes and produce for them. As well as we know that this decision supports works together with the decision of Smith from the Supreme Court of Canada, so patients can possess and produce cannabis in any of its forms, not just limited to dried cannabis.
Did the court give any guidance for going forward?
Well, it made it clear that the MMPR did not promote health and safety. The government found that many of the issues like mold, fire, all that stuff that they raised was not substantiated, that it was all remedial and could be done safely and securely. So I think to that extent the court has set out findings on the evidence given by the police, the evidence given by some of the fire commissioners. In fact, the court found Corporal Holmquist and Fire Chief Len Garris to particularly be not credible witnesses in the case. And so, there was a considerable overstatement. So hopefully the government the new government will see that this is an opportunity to re-legislate quickly to enable medically approved patients to produce for themselves or have a true caregiver stand in their shoes and do so for them. It still leaves the question of the dispensaries and the compassion clubs. And as we know, and the court actually comments on the ineffectiveness of the MMPR, the new regulations, and comments on how there's now been this huge increase in the number of dispensaries. And our take on that is that the patients that we are representing were mostly people on disability pensions who couldn't afford the prices of the LPs or the dispensaries in any event, and determined that they could produce inexpensively for themselves. The great majority of people, obviously, though, don't necessarily want to produce for themselves. They want to be able to go somewhere where they can talk to somebody, get some advice, get some information, and decide what to purchase. And the place where people do that are the dispensaries and the compassion clubs. The MMPR model doesn't allow for that. And so the government needs to pay attention to that. It needs to see that, sure, we need people who are licensed producers like they have under the MMPR who can produce maybe on a large-scale basis in large quantities, but we also need independent dispensaries and compassion clubs who can then provide the information to the patients and let the patients make that choice as to what they want to do, and simply be able to purchase as much as if they would go to a pharmacy or something like that for any other drugs. So hopefully within 6 months we will have a reasonably regulated system that hopefully provides, solves the problems for everyone.
Bias in their testimony, do you think that just points to the stigma surrounding this substance?
Well, I think he said that particularly in relation to Fire Chief Len Garris from Surrey. He found him to be particularly biased and not credible. And he said similar things with respect to Corporal Holmquist. And the young lawyers standing behind me are the ones who did the cross-examination of those two witnesses. And so I think you can give them kudos for having picked apart the evidence, particularly from those two witnesses, to show that it simply wasn't credible. That, you know, all of these allegations about mold, fire, home invasion, public safety are all things that can be dealt with and dealt with reasonably. In my opinion, they don't need to be as overly restrictive in terms of regulations. Unfortunately, the word marijuana still conjures up this emotional response amongst some people. But you need to remember that, you know, doctors prescribe all kinds of drugs that kill people. And we have a serious problem in relation to the opiates. And when they cut those people off, they go to the street and they end up dying from overdoses of fentanyl. I've seen in pharmacies statements that are posted saying that 80,000 young people got high last year taking their parents' drugs from their medicine cabinet. And the government simply says, make sure your medicine is locked up. Make sure you keep it away from your children. You know, we know that people can grow tobacco 15 kilograms for your own use and the use of anybody over 18 in your house. Tobacco can kill. We know people can make alcohol, spirits, beer, and wine in their premises. So, you know, these are drugs that can kill or cause serious health problems. As the judge found and repeated, there's no lethal dose for cannabis. Sure, you can take too much, especially edibles, and feel uncomfortable and so on, but you can't die from it. And so, you know, let's put it in context and realize that we've had compassion clubs and dispensaries here in Vancouver for going on 20 years. But do we have a fallout in terms of problems from those clubs in terms of medical use? No, the evidence is virtually non-existent.
But in terms of the scheme that the government has to revisit or look at, I think the decision also mentions the cost of the NNAR type scheme if that were to continue. I'm just asking how you envisage it might be run.
Well, I mean, I think, you know, we have experience in terms of how it was run over 10 years. And we did not have significant problems from legal medical grows over those 10 years. Vancouver is the illustration. We went from, maybe 10 or 20 compassion clubs and dispensaries to the last figure I think I saw was over 150. And while Vancouver City is trying to regulate them in terms of zoning and licensing, that, in my opinion, is evidence that, and I think the judge refers or hints at that in this decision, is evidence of, as I think I said before, people voting with their feet and saying, you know, we've gone to the LP, maybe we got it the first time, we're on a waiting list, we can't get it now, so we're going to a pharmacy or equivalent of a pharmacy, and we're going to be able to talk to somebody there, we're going to be able to see the different types of cannabis, we're going to be able to try the different types of cannabis. As I said, I think the great majority of patients like to be able to go to something like that. So I think what really needs to happen is the government needs to look at the MMPR and the LPs and the dispensaries and come up with a regime that takes all of them into account while at the same time allowing patients to administer themselves.
Free my people, cheer. Free all my people. What? Free my people, cheer. Free all my people. Let them go. Tell the lawyers and the courts and the judge that the war on drugs is a war on us. It's power to the people, destruction to the system. Free all of the drug offenders that are